Welcome back to another episode of MMA Mat Chat. I am Fabian Stewart, and what a weekend. My goodness. Sugar Sean O'Malley is the new 135-pound champion of the UFC. Wow, who saw that coming? Not many people, let's be honest. Everybody thought Aljamain was going to wrestle him and probably take out a 5-round decision, but in the second round, 51 seconds in, the ref called it because Sean O'Malley hit a beautiful pullback right counter. It was gorgeous. What else can you say? It was fantastic. I've watched the knockout about 10 times now, and it's just as good. The stoppage was fine. Yes, Aljamain could have fought on a little bit more. The ref could have let it go a little bit, but it wasn't by any means a bad stoppage. It wasn't early. It was fine. He knocked him down, and he hit him with about 10 follow-up shots on the ground. Aljamain was still moving, and I know you should give the champion, a chance to really recover, but it doesn't matter. It's done. And it was beautiful. And Sugar Sean O'Malley is the new 135-pound champion. Wow, a lot to break down in that fight. Let's start with round one. Round one, Aljamain didn't shoot. He shot a single leg towards the end of it, like 30 seconds left, and then he kind of came up and clinched, and he was doing good to work in that clinch, but he really didn't come out there how we all expected him to come out. And I think the fact that he wanted to put on an entertaining performance played a factor, and he said that in his post-fight media scrum, that he got in his head a little bit, that he went away from the game plan because he kind of got to his head. Everybody says he's boring and he doesn't get finishes, so he wanted to go out there and stand and trade. And Sugar Sean O'Malley is not somebody you want to throw hands with, especially if you're Aljamain Sterling. So, round one went, and all three judges did score the round for Aljamain, but it was a very close round. And then round two comes out. Aljamain rushes Sean O'Malley, and he catches him with a beautiful pullback right counter. Aljamain overextends, and when you watch it back in slow-mo, he overextends, and it's just like there's so much time for Sean to he loads up, pulls back, and lands a right hook right to the temple. It wasn't really right hook, it was right straight. But yeah, beautiful. What a finish, what a performance. I know Dana White loved it. He's very happy. And yeah, who knows what happens now at the 135 division. It is the most stacked division in the UFC right now. It is so hot, and you don't know what's going to happen next. Cheeto Vera won, which we'll get to later. And Sean O'Malley, he called him out. He said, "Did Cheeto win? Was it boring? Well, we can do that in December." And I'm fine with that. Even if Aljamain wants the rematch, take some time, take more than 6 months at least, and you'll get your rematch. Maybe not with him, maybe with Cheeto, maybe with somebody else, but you'll get your title shot. The UFC won't want to give it because the UFC Dana White hates Aljamain Sterling. That's well known. And yeah, maybe they do Cheeto in December. We'll see. Corey Sandhagen is injured, so he's not fighting anytime soon, and Sean O'Malley said he wants a quick turnaround, so it really only leaves Cheeto, because you can't give it to Usman Nurmagomedov. He needs to beat somebody in the top 5 or top 6 to get that title shot. Merab, obviously you could give a title shot straight to Merab, but if the UFC is smart, they'll do Cheeto, because Sean O'Malley is more likely to beat Cheeto than he is to beat Merab, and I think the UFC probably knows that. Merab probably will just wrestle and grind him for 5 rounds and beat him, let's be honest. So I think the best thing would be to do that Cheeto fight. But yeah, congrats to Sean O'Malley. What a performance. What more can you say? It was beautiful. He did a really good job of cutting the ring off. He was on the, if he got to the cage, he circled around because he didn't want to be up against the cage. Aljamain would just shoot and hold him against that cage. And he did a really good job controlling the center of especially in round one. He was controlling the center because he knew that he had to stay in the center, because he did not want to get up against that cage, because Aljamain would shoot. And when you're up against the cage and someone shoots, you can't do much. You can't sprawl. You can't go backwards. So yeah, a great performance by O'Malley. I don't really know what else to say. I think I had some notes, but I don't even know where I've put my phone now. So we're just doing this off the cusp. And for Aljamain, man, he was class. He was class in defeat. To use a bit of a pro wrestling term, he had a bit of a babyface turn at the end there. You know, he gave a fantastic interview in the octagon afterwards. He said, you know, he's just somebody trying to chase a dream. He encouraged everybody out there in the crowd and watching at home, if they've got dreams, to chase them, and he's gonna come back. And he said the move to 145, which was interesting because before the fight it was like, he said 99% chance I move up to 145 because Merab, his teammate, needs to fight for the belt. And he said quite honestly, if Sean O'Malley hit him like that, he can't imagine what Volkanovski would do to him. And that's it takes a man to say something like that. So I feel a bit of a face turn coming from Aljamain. I mean, he's still going to get, people still don't like him, but it's kind of like Usman when he got knocked out. You know, there's something about when that happens. If you take it on the chin well, you give props to your opponent, you don't make up excuses, you know, people respect that. And that's what Aljamain did. So well done to him. You know, he if he has a rematch with O'Malley, he will not fight that same fight. That's for sure. He will shoot straight away and he will shoot relentlessly. But O'Malley did great. He stuffed what little takedowns Aljamain did offer him and landed the perfect shot. And he said afterwards he had a rib injury six weeks before the fight. He hadn't trained any grappling at all 6 weeks before the fight, and he was really nervous going into that because he didn't know if it was gonna. I think he had a strained muscle along his rib cage, and he didn't know if that was gonna, you know, come back in the fight. But we really didn't get to find out. So fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It makes the division so exciting. A lot of people don't like O'Malley because he got this push from the UFC. You know, they really gave him easy fights up until the Peter Yan fight. He didn't fight anyone. He fought Pedro Munoz, but that went to a no contest with the eye poke. So I guess he took that fight. But then after that, you know, the only other fight he's had in the top 15 was maybe at least in the top 10. I think Vera was in the top 15 when they fought, but was Peter Yan, and that was close. And a lot of people thought he lost that. But he gets this title shot and he wins it. And nothing more to say. Well done to Sean O'Malley. We've entered the Sean O'Malley era. I hope he defends it many times. He has the potential to be a huge star. He already is, but if he can get 2 or 3 defenses on that belt, he is going to be an absolute superstar. He's got the persona. He's got, you know, the people love him. Something about openly smoking weed as a UFC fighter that people just get drawn to. But he's fantastic. He's exciting, and he's got the personality. He's got it all. And it was cool to see when he got the finish, when the ref waved it off, he just slowed down and just walked. He did like 3 laps of the octagon, and then he jumped on the cage, and then he, you know, gave some high fives outside the crowd. But he was very stoic, and he was great. What more can I say? Let's move on because I can sit here all day talking about how great that was for O'Malley, how great it is for the fans and everything, but we all know that. So let's move on to the co-main event, which was Weili Zgang absolutely dominating Amanda Lemos. What can I say? She is, especially since Nunes was retired and Valentina lost her belt, she is the pound-for-pound #1 women's fighter in the UFC, in the world, without a doubt. That was just so impressive. She won every round, maybe but one, but let's get the strikes up here. She broke the record for the biggest strike differential in a women's fight, which was a differential of 200 and, got to do some quick maths here. She landed 296 strikes to 29. So I'm under pressure to do some quick maths, but it's about 270, 268, something like that. Don't quote me on that. It's a lot. It's huge. To only receive 29 strikes is unbelievable. And Amanda Lemos, she did well as she could have, getting absolutely dominated. It wasn't just dominated, she got outclassed. Weili was just better everywhere. And she almost had a DAS, but not really. She didn't have the leg hooked. Weili did the right things. And that's all she needed to do. And you got to give Amanda Lemos credit because, firstly, of how good Weili Zhang is. And I think in the next couple of fights, we'll realize that if she puts on this kind of display against other women. But Amanda Lemos did well. She didn't give up. She kept fighting. She did really good defensively on the ground. She tried. That's all you can say. But Weili Zhang was just far too good. And Amanda, she landed 29 strikes, and she made those count. Like, she hit her with a few big shots. Obviously, she got outstruck by 270, but what she did land, she there was power behind it, and she was swinging for the fences, but it was not even close to enough. Weili Zhang is just that good. That's all we can say. She landed 6 takedowns. She had over 15 minutes of control time, 163 significant strikes. She was throwing everything. She was throwing leg kicks, teeps, great crosses, great movement, beautiful takedowns. She just timed them all so perfectly that it just looked effortless to get Amanda Lemos to the ground. And Amanda Lemos is a good grappler, so to do that to her and just make it look so effortless just shows how good Weili is. And I was hearing the whole week before this fight that Weili Zhang trains so hard. When she doesn't have a fight booked, she is always at the Apex. And I can't remember who I was listening to now, but they said every time they've gone to visit the Apex, Weili's there. Weili's there and Weili's training. So props to her. She's getting a lot of love. She's getting some love from Colby Covington, of all people, which is he doesn't give love out to many. So to get Colby Covington to give you some love is great. And I think she replied back, "Thank you, handsome." So bit of an interesting one there, especially with Colby's persona being so pro-America. You would have thought he would put up a bit of rivalry against the Chinese, but he loved it, we loved it, we all loved it, and I cannot wait to see her fight again. She could go up easily. I don't think she has much trouble making this weight, but she could easily go up to 125 and fight, whether Shevchenko, if she gets the title back or not. But yeah, absolute fantastic performance from her. What else can we say? We're going to get through this one quickly. I don't really make this a 45-minute one. We'll try and smash it out in 25 minutes. Talk a little bit about what's going on next week. But for the middle of the main card was Ian Garry and Neil Magny, and my God, Ian Garry just put a beat down on him from the first leg kick he threw, tripped him. And I don't know if that hit a nerve or something, but if his leg went dead from there, but he just kept bashing that leg kick. Almost could have got stopped at the end of round 2 with just how Neil Magny couldn't walk. And Neil Magny is tough, man. We all know he's tough. He's so hard to finish. And Ian Garry probably should have got a finish here. He could have put the pressure on a little bit. I felt like he kind of wanted a 15-minute fight just to get, he knows that his next fight's probably going to be a 5-rounder on a fight night. If not, it'll be a 3-rounder on a pay-per-view, and then his next fight will probably be for the title if he wins that. So he wants to get some minutes in his repertoire in the UFC. So I felt he could have finished him if he really wanted to, even with just you have a guy that beat up. To get it, he got a scorecard of 30-24, which is 10-8, 10-8, 10-8. So, and you don't see that often. I don't think every round was 10-8. It's hard. It's what a 10-8 should be, but a lot of judges don't score. You have to absolutely murder someone to get a 10-8 from some judges. So it's kind of hard to say what a 10-8 should be. What he did is what a 10-8 should be, but it's not what a 10-8 is these days. But yeah, what more can you say? The whole week he was harping up about, what Neil Magny made some comments about. He's going to beat him like he beats his child. He didn't say that. He said, the way you discipline a child is what he's going to do to him. But Ian Garry took it super personally, and it was too much. A lot of people were kind of turned off by it, and I think he actually lost fans this week because, firstly, in the press conference, there was 2 things he said in the press conference that were 100% a McGregor quote. And he's just everyone's just making this comparison to him and McGregor, and it's not what he needs. He needs to find his own persona somehow. So hopefully whoever he fights next, there's animosity in fights, but it needs to be. It just felt very forced. And the fight ends, and he's still flipping him off. Like that's why. There's no need for that. And what I love about fighting, this is just me personally, but is when you have two guys, throwing absolute trash talk, and then the fight ends, they say, well done. Even Usman and Covington, after their second fight, said, well done. They gave each other a hug with all the bitterness there. Like, he doesn't need to do that, Ian Garry. He's better than that, and hopefully he'll learn for his next fight. It depends who his opponent is. Maybe he'll trash talk more, unless he wants to go full heel. But he's trying to be a babyface, he's trying to be a good guy, and the people aren't liking it. So yeah, what's next for Ian Garry? There's so many matchups at welterweight you could give him. A few guys are booked at the moment, but yeah, Dana White said in the post-fight press conference that they don't want to do Dublin yet. One more and then Dublin, and they want to do them at Madison Square Garden because there's so many Irish people in New York, and every time McGregor went to MSG, it was crazy with the Irish. So they want to do that there, and he'll get a lot of love just because of that. And then if he wins that, then Dana said we'll go to Dublin. So potentially, if he wins his next fight, potentially a pay-per-view fight for the title in Dublin. He did call out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and apparently Stephen Wonderboy Thompson denied that straight away. Like, he said no. So that's fair enough. Stephen can do what he wants. He doesn't have to fight 25-year-old Ian Garry. He's a killer. He looked great on the feet. No one's really tested his wrestling yet, but there's not that many wrestlers at welterweight. They're all kind of, you got Covington, but other than Covington, they're all pretty much strikers. That's not true, actually. Bilal. You got Bilal. Maybe Bilal would wrestle him. That'd be a good fight, Bilal and Ian Garry. You could make that. And then the fans would get behind Ian Garry because there's nobody the fans hate more for no reason than Bilal Muhammad. They just, nobody likes him. Who? What's his name? You see there's videos now of people, which is so disrespectful, but going up to Bilal into his person and saying, what's your name? And when you're a little bit of a boring wrestling fighter, and your nickname is Remember the Name, well, you're just asking for that, really. People are gonna rip into you, but yeah, it is what it is. Well done to Ian Garry. Neil Magny continues to be a gatekeeper for the welterweight division. Moving on, we had Damon Blackshear versus Mario Batista. Now, this fight was supposed to be Cody Garbrandt and Mario Batista. Cody Garbrandt pulled out, just over a week beforehand. And Damon Blackshear, who got a twister submission last week, comes back 7 days notice, not even a catch weight. They do it at 135, 2 fights in a row at 135, which is crazy because, Chimaev had the quick 10-day turnaround, but it was at two different weight classes. It was welterweight and middleweight, which makes sense. You don't want to cut twice to the same weight in a week or, 10 days, but he made 135 twice. And he looked good, man. He looked really good. I think that this was his second fight in the UFC. Let me check because it was his second fight in the UFC. No, it wasn't. Sorry, no, the thing was loading. He has had 4 fights in the UFC now, but he looked great. And Mario Batista is no easy opponent, and round 1, Damon Blackshear just wrestled him, outworked him, and then in the later rounds, Mario Batista, he became, his coach said in between round 1 and 2, you got to be aggressive on the wrestling because Blackshear is a great grappler, and he did. He came out in round 2 and won that, and then it was close. I think one of the judges scored all 3 rounds for Mario Batista, which is rough because I thought you could have given it to Blackshear. Like, it was a close fight, but yeah, to come in off 7 days notice and do that, man, Damon Blackshear is going to be a big fighter at 135 for sure. I'll put my name on that. He'll be I'm not saying he's going to win a championship or even fight a championship, but he's going to be top 10 at one point for sure. He looked fantastic. As good as you can on a loss, on 7 days notice. And obviously, when you have a fighter coming on short notice, it is, for Batista, he was in camp, but he was training for a boxer. in Cody Garbrandt. So it does change things a little bit, but it's still not the same as just coming in. So I think Damon Blackshear really his stock went up in this one. But that fight should have been when Cody Garbrandt was pulled. That fight should have gone to the prelims, and Chris Weidman, Brad Tavares should have taken a spot on the main card, because it's only on there because of Garbrandt. No offense to Batista, but he's not the reason that was on the main card. So I don't know why they kept Weidman on the prelims. I guess because they always need a big fight to finish off the prelims to get everyone to buy the pay-per-view. So I guess that's why. Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz, Vera won by decision, but he was active, he was pushing forward. He was not as active as he could have been, but compared to the Sandhagen fight, he was much more active, He went forward and he pieced him up. The strikes were, let's have a look what the strikes were. 141 to 113 in favor of Vera. So, he outstruck him by 30 odd. But, man, there's something about Vera, man. He's Wolverine. You hit him 113 times, he looks fine. And Pedro didn't. Pedro was bleeding. He was swollen. And, yeah, Marlon Vera just wears damage so well. And that's a big thing to have. Whether it's because he's moving his head, he's not eating the shots fully, but even when he does eat shots, you don't see it on his face. And for the judges, that's a big deal. If you have a fight where both fighters in a round strike each other the same amount, and one of them looks like shit, and one of them looks like he's just gotten out of bed, the judges are going to give it to the person who doesn't look like they've been hit in the face by a bloody truck. So, yeah, he won, and he's kind of been gifted a title shot by O'Malley calling him out and saying, let's run it back. Which is, he would have had to beat another contender, which is, he lost to Sandhagen firstly, and there's a lot of other names at the top of that division that could easily beat him. And not that he couldn't beat them either, but, tough fights. But to just get a shot like that against O'Malley, he could beat O'Malley easily. He beat him. He's already beaten him. He's the only person who's beaten O'Malley, and people put it down to O'Malley's injury. He beat him. Like, yes, O'Malley got injured during the fight, but off a leg kick from Vera, like, he beat him. And then, he said it's a pre-existing injury, of course, but I will note, though, that the Sugar State Athletic Commission has cleared that loss, according to Sugar Sean O'Malley. So, according to him, he's 12-0? 17-0, sorry. But his official record is 17-1. So I think it's actually 18-0 on the Sugar State Athletic Commission, because he got one no contest, which I think was for tainted supplements, which is kind of bullshit in and of itself. So yeah, but I love Marlon Vera. He's one of my favorite fighters. He's great. When he goes, like, he does have a few fights where he starts slow in every fight, like the Frankie Edgar one. He started slow, and he could have lost if that went to a decision, but he got that beautiful front kick at the end of the fight. One of my favorite fights of all time is him and Rob Font, where he was outstruck by 100 and beat the shit out of Rob Font. He knocked him down at the end of almost every round. Rob Font looked like the monster from Goonies afterwards, and Marlon Vera, who ate 100 more shots than he hit Rob Font with, looked fine. It was unbelievable. That's one of my favorite fights, just because that just goes to show that numbers don't show the full story of what happened in a fight. Moving on to the prelims, which I didn't get a chance to watch this on the weekend, but I just watched it now, and Brad Tavares and Chris Weidman, oh my God. Chris Weidman just got beat up bad. He got his left leg beat the fuck up coming in from breaking his right leg. And yeah, he probably should retire. He doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to do anything more in his career. He needs to look after his health. But he probably won't. And he's on good money too. That's the thing. Dana White said in his post-fight press conference, Weidman needs to retire. Absolutely. But, Weidman's getting paid a lot for these fights. I don't know what it is, but it would be probably our biggest contract of anyone on this card. He's a former champion. He's had, 15 odd fights in the UFC on multiple pay-per-views headlined. He would be getting paid very well. So from Dana White's point of view, he would love Chris Weidman to retire so that he can put someone else on a card and pay them 12 and 12, not 250K to show and, whatever else on top. Maybe he's getting paid more than that. Probably is, to be honest. I would imagine he'd be getting 400K to fight, somewhere around that mark, because with the UFC, especially if you're a champion, a former champion, every time you get your contract renewed, it's always bigger than the last. So he's still got at least one fight left on his contract, I think, possibly more. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in there again. He's a fighter. He wants to fight. He wants to earn money. I'm sure he's got enough money, but I mean, these fighters at the end of their career, he's 39. He should, for what he's done for the sport, he should have 20 million in the bank, and it wouldn't even be close to that. Maybe he goes and boxes Jake Paul after this and makes some fucking money, but who knows? What else do we have on that prelims? So we had the Bantamweight final for the Ultimate Fighter, which is Brad Katona and Cody Gibson. That was great. It was a great fight, and Brad Katona, who trains in Ireland under John Kavanagh, who's Conor McGregor's coach, he looked good. He won rounds 1 and 3, I think, and it was a great fight. And Cody Gibson looked great as well. Dana said he'll keep him around. I'd be interested to see when the Ultimate Fighter first started, the prize was a 6-figure UFC contract. That was in the title. You're the Ultimate Fighter. You won a 6-figure fight contract. But they don't say that anymore. Now you just win a contract. So you got to wonder what contract they win. They're probably, congratulations, you win a 12 and 12 contract. 12 to win, 12K to win, 12K to show. Like, there's no way they'd be giving them 6-figure contracts. But Brad Katona, he's now won 2 Ultimate Fighters because he won the Ultimate Fighter about 5 years ago. And I think he only had 2 fights in the UFC. One of them he lost a decision. It was a close fight. And the other one he lost to Merab, who's, potentially going to fight for the title. And then they cut him, which is rough because the UFC does that a lot. They cut good fighters just because they had, 1 or 2 losses in the toughest organization in the world, and then you look at who they fight and where those fighters go on to, it's no surprise that he lost to Merab, so it's pretty rough. But I think I'll end the fight talk there. I don't think there was anything on the. Tell you what, I didn't even watch the early prelims. I'll probably get to those during the week, but I don't think there was anything more of note. Only 4 finishes on the whole card, so a lot of decisions. But the main event went to a finish, and that's all that anyone really cares about. So, what have we got next week? This week coming, we have a fight nobody wanted to see, Max Holloway and Korean Zombie. And listening to all the promotion for it, it's like they say one of the best 145ers ever, Max Holloway, and the fan favorite Korean Zombie. Anything can happen when they go in there. It's like, no, not anything can happen. The Korean Zombie is old. He is slow. He's a great fighter, but he's 36. He looks 40. But, maybe it was just because we saw what Volk did to him. It made us, really look at him differently. But Max Holloway, make no mistake, he's going to go in there and beat the brakes off him for 25 minutes because Max Holloway is not really a one-punch knockout guy. He doesn't really throw with all his power. He's just going to go in there and just beat the shit out of him for 25 minutes. That's what's going to happen. Mark my word. And no one's going to be surprised when that happens. I think everybody's expecting that. I can't see Korean Zombie doing it. Maybe he tries to grapple him, but Max Holloway has elite takedown defense. The best haven't been able to take him down. So I can't see Korean Zombie at 36 years old at this point in his career doing that. But the Koreans, it'll be fun because the Korean Zombie, he's called that because he loves to fight. He walks forward. He gets hit. What else can you say? We've got Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann as the co-main, and Giga Chikadze and Alex Caceres as the fight before that, which is the first time we've seen Giga Chikadze in, I think, since Cater beat the shit out of him, right? Let's have a look. Calvin Cater beat the shit out of him, yes. And we haven't seen him since. And he was such a hype train before then. So that'll be interesting. I don't really know what else I had to chat about. I had a few notes, but yeah. I think that's it. I had some notes about the commentary and what they were saying, but it's fine. You get that every week. And to be honest, I'm not sure how many people are going to make it to the end of this episode, but I'm going to keep filming them, and one day we'll have a big audience. But until then, I'm out. It's been a pleasure. This is MMA Mat Chat. Peace.